A routine flight was about to become a moment no one on board would ever forget. Passengers settled into their seats, expecting a quiet journey across the country. But before the plane even left the ground, a wealthy businesswoman made a decision that stunned everyone around her. Looking at the man assigned to the seat beside her, she immediately demanded a different arrangement. Her complaints grew louder, her confidence grew stronger. She believed her status and influence could solve any problem. What she didn't realize was that the quiet black man sitting next to her was carrying a story, a reputation, and a future connection she could never have imagined. Over the next 24 hours, a series of events would turn her world upside down. The success she had spent years building would suddenly be at risk. The people she trusted would disappear. The power she relied on would fail her. And when everything seemed lost, the only person capable of helping her would be the same man she had publicly disrespected. What happened next became a powerful lesson about character, humility, and the dangers of judging someone before knowing their story. Stay until the end, because this unforgettable journey proves that life has a remarkable way of teaching lessons when we least expect. Woman in seat RA had everything money could buy. Private drivers waited when she landed. Luxury hotels reserved entire floors for her visits. Business magazines called her one of the most influential entrepreneurs in the fashion industry. Yet on a flight that was supposed to be routine, one decision would begin a chain of events that threatened everything she had built. The passengers around her didn't know it yet, but the uncomfortable scene unfolding before takeoff would become the first chapter of a story about pride, consequences, and an unexpected lesson that would change a life forever. Stay with this story until the end, because what happened during the next 24 hours would leave even the most seasoned travelers speechless. Victoria Langston stepped into the airport terminal with the confidence of someone accustomed to being recognized. Her heels clicked against the polished floor as she walked past crowded waiting areas filled with travelers rushing to catch flights. Several people glanced in her direction. Some recognized her from magazine covers and television interviews. Others simply noticed the elegance she carried with her. Victoria enjoyed that attention. She had spent years building her image along with her business empire. Every detail mattered. The clothes she wore, the places she visited, even the people she associated with. Success had become part of her identity. Her company, Langston Luxury, had grown from a small boutique operation into a multi-million-dollar fashion brand. Investors admired her determination. Employees respected her ability to close deals. Competitors feared her aggressive strategies. At least that was the story everyone saw from the outside. What most people didn't realize was how much pressure she carried every day. The previous 6 months had been difficult. Sales had slowed. Competition had increased. Several major investors were asking uncomfortable questions about future growth. Victoria refused to show, but privately she knew the upcoming business conference in Chicago could determine the company's future. A major investment deal was waiting. If successful, it would secure the next stage of expansion. Also, section. If it failed, problems that had been hidden for months could become impossible to ignore. That morning she pushed those worries aside. She had always believed confidence solved problems. Confidence solved problems, and confidence was something she never lacked. After clearing security, she settled into the airline lounge reserved for premium passengers. So, a few minutes later, her assistant called. "Everything ready for tomorrow's presentation?" Victoria smiled. "Of course. The investors seem excited." "They should be." Her voice remained calm and polished, no hint of uncertainty, no sign of concern. "No." When the call ended, she opened her laptop and reviewed notes one final time. The numbers looked acceptable. Not perfect, but acceptable. She convinced herself everything would be fine. Across the terminal, another traveler prepared for the same flight. Marcus Reed sat quietly near a charging station reading financial reports on his tablet. Unlike Victoria, he attracted almost no attention. His suit was professional but simple. His briefcase showed signs of years of use. Nothing about his appearance suggested extraordinary wealth or influence, which suited him perfectly. Marcus preferred being underestimated. It happened often. People saw a calm, approachable man who smiled easily and spoke softly. They rarely guessed that he advised major corporations during financial crises. His company specialized in helping businesses survive difficult situations. When investors panicked, when leadership struggled, when organizations faced collapse, Marcus and his team stepped in. His reputation within financial circles was remarkable, but he never sought publicity. He believed results mattered more than recognition. As boarding time approached, passengers gathered near the gate. Families organized children, business travelers checked emails, vacationers discussed plans. Usual chaos of modern air travel filled the terminal. When first-class boarding was announced, Victoria immediately joined the line. She preferred being among the first passengers on board. Waiting wasn't something she enjoyed. A flight attendant welcomed her with a smile. Victoria offered a polite nod and entered the aircraft. The luxurious cabin looked exactly as expected. Spacious seats, soft lighting, attentive service, everything arranged for comfort. She walked confidently towards seat RA and stopped. Someone occupied the seat beside hers. Victoria's eyes narrowed slightly. The passenger appeared relaxed, focused on reading something on a tablet. Marcus Reed. Though she didn't know his name, not yet, she checked her boarding pass. Seat RA. Correct. The adjacent seat. Occupied. For a brief moment she simply stared. Then she placed her bag overhead and sat down. Marcus glanced up. Afternoon. His tone was friendly. Professional. Victoria responded with a short nod. Nothing more. As additional passengers boarded, she noticed several details. His briefcase looked ordinary. His watch wasn't a luxury brand. His clothing appeared practical rather than fashionable. For reasons she couldn't fully explain, irritation began building inside her. She had imagined spending the flight reviewing business plans quietly. Instead, she felt uncomfortable. Feeling grew stronger with each passing minute. Finally, she pressed the call button. A flight attendant arrived. "How may I assist you?" Victoria lowered her voice, though nearby passengers could still hear. "Are there any other seats available?" The attendant checked a tablet. "I'm sorry, ma'am. First class is completely booked today." Victoria glanced toward Marcus, then back at the attendant. "I'd really prefer another arrangement." The attendant looked confused. "I'm afraid there aren't any empty seats." Victoria forced a smile. Kind people use when trying to remain polite despite frustration. "Could you check again?" The attendant reviewed the seating chart a second time, then shook her head. "No available seats." Marcus quietly continued reading. He seemed unaware of the tension, or perhaps he simply chose not to react. Victoria crossed her arms. The flight attendant hesitated. "Is there a specific concern?" Several nearby passengers looked in their direction. Victoria realized attention was growing, but instead of ending the conversation, she continued. I expected a different seating arrangement." The attendant maintained professionalism. "All passengers in first class are assigned seats according to reservation availability." Marcus finally looked up. His expression remained calm. "If moving would help, I don't mind switching if another seat opens later." His willingness to accommodate should have ended the situation. Instead, it somehow irritated Victoria even more. "No," she replied quickly. "I simply think there should be better options." An uncomfortable silence followed. The attendant shifted awkwardly. Nearby passengers exchanged glances. Foyty. Everyone understood the conversation had become unusual. Marcus simply returned to his tablet. He offered no argument, no criticism, no visible reaction. Eventually, the flight attendant excused herself. The issue appeared settled, at least temporarily. Victoria stared out the window, feeling justified, feeling confident, unaware that several passengers had witnessed the exchange, unaware that first impressions often reveal more about the person making them than the person receiving them. The aircraft eventually pushed back from the gate. Safety announcements began. Engines roared to life. Within minutes, they were climbing through clouds toward cruising altitude. For the first hour, neither passenger spoke. Victoria reviewed presentation materials. Marcus examined financial reports. The atmosphere remained tense. Then turbulence struck unexpectedly. Nothing dangerous, just enough to shake the aircraft. Several passengers grabbed armrests. Flight attendants paused service. Victoria disliked flying under normal circumstances. Turbulence made it worse. She gripped her seat tightly, trying not to show nervousness. Marcus noticed. Without making a scene, he spoke calmly. "Weather reports showed this section would be rough." Victoria looked at him, surprised. "The pilots are expecting it." His tone carried quiet reassurance. "Should smooth out soon." She didn't respond, yet his confidence seemed strangely comforting. A few minutes later, exactly as he predicted, the turbulence ended. The flight returned to normal. Victoria returned to work. But something about the exchange lingered in her thought, not because it was dramatic, because it wasn't. Marcus had shown kindness despite the earlier situation. The contrast made her slightly uncomfortable. As evening approached, passengers settled into a quieter rhythm. Some watched movies, others slept. Outside the windows, the sky turned orange and gold. Marcus continued reviewing documents, numbers, charts, financial analyses, pages and pages of data. Victoria noticed. Curiosity briefly overcame irritation. Finance? Marcus looked up. Yes. You work in investments? A little. The answer seemed oddly modest. Most successful people enjoyed discussing accomplishments. Marcus appeared uninterested in impressing anyone. Victoria returned to her laptop. The conversation ended. Hours later, the aircraft landed. Passengers gathered belongings. Phones reconnected to networks. Messages flooded screens. Victoria's device vibrated repeatedly. Email after email. Text after text after text. The volume seemed unusual. Confidence faded slightly as she opened the first message. Then the second. Then the third. Each carried troubling news. A supplier issue. An investor concern, unexpected financial questions. Her stomach tightened. This wasn't normal. By the time she entered the terminal, dozens more notifications had arrived. The problems appeared connected, serious, potentially very serious. Across the concourse, Marcus walked calmly toward baggage claim, unaware that the woman who had spent the flight questioning his presence beside her was about to face the most difficult 24 hours of her professional life, and neither of them knew their paths were destined to cross again much sooner than either expected.